So then, like, when I went to international school, where you had that ounce, a little bit more freedom, where you're like, go play. I'm like, what? What do you mean? Like, do I not need to like get like 100% on my next, test, like the next day, And I was like, what do you mean I don't have homework tonight?
Hi everyone, welcome to Tell Me Over Tea. My name is Lois.
I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Sylvie.
And today I am actually drinking a Hampstead organic brand tea, and it's a peppermint and fennel tea. It's my new thing at the moment. I'm a bit obsessed with fennel. I'm going through a phase with my cooking, but also like with my drinking. It's just a great summer spice to have, and it kind of goes really well with like fatty meat, like sausage and fennel. If you want to make a pasta or anything, these flavors just go well. And that's what I'm having today
fennel?
Because
it's a seed.
Fennel?
It's a seed? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt
But
you.
it grows into like a bulb. It's
fennel.
It's kind of
like celery, but more pungent. But it has like little seeds. I have in my. Do you want me to? I have like my fennel seeds right there, sitting on my countertop. Do you want to see?
Sure.
You want to see what it looks like?
Yeah,
I also
sure.
really like fennel, but I grew to like it because it's very close cousin to star anise. You know star anise?
Yes.
Oh, I hate star anise.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, me too. But fennel was.
But star anise has an aftertaste, and fennel doesn't. I think
fennel's really nice.
But they taste similar.
But I don't know about fennel and tea. I mean, I don't know. Okay, I'll show you.
I'm drinking it.
Okay,
it's nice.
Try to.
Star anise for sure.
It goes really well with sausage. But I've never had it in a drink. I've like used it in cooking. It's like.
Yeah.
It's like.
Oh, that's not at all what I thought it was going to be.
A little
like.
green.
No.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good.
Okay.
What about you lot? What are you having to drink today?
All right. I am having Twining's English breakfast tea. It is a classic in this household, tea bag style.
She's having
a little bit
actual tea today.
I am having actual tea today because I'm finally in the correct time zone. I'm not in a basement in America at 3 a.m. recording this, so I can finally have tea instead of hot water. It is the afternoon. We're having fun. It's great.
It's the first time I've seen Steph not in darkness since we've done remote recording. This is quite funny.
It's been a hot minute. But yeah, what about you, Sylvie?
I am having my go-to English breakfast tea as well, but it is Yorkshire and it's loose leaf.
Yes, Yorkshire is my choice.
Always gotta specify loose leaf.
Yes, it tastes very different.
Sorry, I had the last little sip, so I was like, oh.
So in this episode today, we're actually going to talk about our childhood and early education. So like anything that's preteen. I'm sure we all went through really different experiences. But to kickstart, I can share that I went to elementary school. Like I spent most of my childhood in Hong Kong, and it was, for the most part, really fun. Like, I'm going to be completely honest, I don't think I remember most of it, like, truthfully, from my real memory. A lot of it is just recollections from my family and friends telling me bits and bobs, and through, like, pictures, photo albums and things like that. But elementary school was, for me, really fun because I got to do a lot of activities, I think, from what I recall. And I went to the elementary school down the road from me, so I could walk to school, and that was the fun part of it. And my friends all lived in the same street, and so you could go and play in other people's houses at the end of the day or at the end of like school. So I guess that's the perks of living in like a environment with a school like network already, and everyone's just kind of within your vicinity. But what was that like actually, Steph, in the US? Because I'm guessing you're not going to school down the road.
Actually, for elementary school, I did go to a school that was really close to my grandmother's house. And so I remember getting dropped off at my grandma's house and then walking to school. And then she would pick me up, she would pick me and my cousin up from school. And we would just walk back to her place. But that only happened until second grade, and then I moved to the suburbs and then went to a different school. Yeah, and then was there from second grade all the way up until high school. And then, yeah, so still walking to school and home in the neighborhood that I grew up in.
Oh, like you didn't need to take public transport?
No. Even when I went to school in a
wow.
bigger city, like when I was in first grade and second grade, I didn't have to take public transportation ever.
Did you ride the big yellow school bus that you see in the movies?
No. We rode it. So we rode it for field trips, but like it wasn't like an everyday occurrence. It wasn't like
you didn't have
bus
the
picks
yellow
you up or
school
whatever.
bus.
No, so
For
like
field trips.
My like how I imagine like the American school setting is just like what I see on films. Everybody jumps on the big yellow school bus. Everybody has like they get to wear whatever they want. They can wear jeans and like whatever because like I don't know.
Public school, yes.
Yeah,
I did go to public school, so we were.
Right? And then you have the lockers, and everybody's like, I don't know, and they're like little gangs and their little cliques and stuff. And then you got those like long lockers that look like gym lockers.
Yes,
yes. Well, we had half lockers. We didn't have like a full.
All right, you're still
ceiling to floor locker. It wasn't like you could shove a kid inside. It was like half of the size of somebody. So just for books.
Yeah. So I'm curious as to, what was it like? What was school like in America?
I assume it was like how school was anywhere else. Like,
really?
I think so.
I feel like it must not be, because school was nothing like what we saw on TV for us. Well, for me.
Well, okay, then maybe I just don't know what school was like in Hong Kong, because most movie portrayals of school was pretty accurate. Like, of course, they heighten it for entertainment and whatnot, but for the most part, the way that school was structured was very similar. Oh, okay, so I guess this is the difference that I later learned, is that in elementary school, you have a single teacher for every single subject. So you don't move classrooms, or there is no like home period or whatever the top period is for you guys. I have no idea. And then our school is structured elementary school, middle school, and then high school. So middle school and high school is when you start to have class periods. So each subject pertains to a certain period, and you have to move around the school because each teacher has a single classroom for their subject, or maybe they teach like up to 2 or 3 subjects, but usually within the same range of subjects. So usually if a teacher is teaching biology, they might also teach just like natural sciences or something. I don't know. It kind of depends. So you would go around the school per subject, and then you would have 5 to 7, sometimes 8 subjects depending. And we had core subjects that you had to take, and then some like extra subjects that are usually like art related or science related. It kind of just depends on what you're trying to achieve, whether you're trying to get like more college credits or whether you're just trying to have the lightest schedule ever, which is what I was trying to have senior year of high school.
It sounds like a pick and mix. It's very different from what I know for school to be.
Yeah. How was it like for you?
As in, like, I mean, to be fair, Sylvie and I will have very different experiences of school as well, because she went to a local school for a much longer time than I did, because I did 1 year of local school at primary school, like P1, what we would call, and then I actually transferred to an international school because I couldn't hack the exams. I, as a child, was just crying to my parents, being like, I don't want to have exams every day. I don't want to have a test every day. And then so I ended up going to international school, thinking that it would be easier for my academics. Like, that would have a chill time, because I guess the reputation for most people is that international schools are much more, diverse in the way they educate, and it's less about the textbook and less about the tests. But I went to probably one of the more academic international schools in Hong Kong, if not like the ones that went down a more traditional route. And so I ended up feeling very academically pressured as well. And there was definitely no option to do anything that would be more appropriate to your level or to like your skill set or your ways of learning. It was very much just like, we're running through this system, and everyone tests through this system. There's no selection of like choices of classes or like levels. And yeah, it was pretty stressful. Actually, when I was in primary school, I would say I found academics like really stressful, actually. it became a huge part of how I was doing a lot of tuition. We've all done tuition here, right?
What is
extracurricular?
Yeah.
As in Kumon. Are we all Kumon people?
I've never
I
actually
did
Kumon,
Kumon.
but I had to have extra help on other like
Maths.
math, science stuff because like Hong Kong is just a place where like being academically, good is like that's cool, like even in international
cool. Yeah.
Yes, international school, like when I went after, my local school experience, yes, I felt a little bit not relaxed, but you have kind of a freedom-ish, but it's still there. Like people still want to like achieve and like be good at stuff, it's still there, people still want to get like, I don't know, straight A stars, blah, blah, blah. Whereas I don't know what it's like in America. Like, are people...
Okay, so I think there's a little bit of discrepancy now that you're like explaining it. When I talk about movies, I think I'm talking more about movies today. I think 90s movies were very much in the vein of school sucks.
Yeah.
If you're good at school, you're a nerd. Like trying is so stupid. But that's not how it was like at all in my school. I went to a very academic high school, and the middle school leading up to it, basically, if you're in a certain school district, you usually stay within the same school district. So most of the people that I went to middle school with, I ended up also going to high school with. So my school district was very academic. So it was cool to be good at school. Or like, maybe it wasn't like the coolest thing ever, but even the popular kids were really academically gifted. They were trying hard in their academics. And maybe that's not the same for other schools in other areas. But yeah, for this particular school district, it was very much like you want to get into a good college. That's the goal. So yeah.
So it was cool to be smart, basically.
I don't know if it was cool to be smart. If you were the smartest person, that didn't automatically make you cool, but it definitely didn't hurt. Not trying in academics did not make you cool. You should be doing well in school. Yeah.
It's kind of like in local school, it's just slave drive. If I'm going back to my earlier childhood experience, because I stayed a little bit longer compared to Lois, I didn't leave local school until I was like 10. Mm-hmm. But like even just those couple, like those few years, I don't want to be too harsh because when you're that young, you don't really have anything to compare with, so you just experience it, and then like now you reflect back on it, you're like, oh, okay, that's what happened. It was very strict in a way where in the classroom it's like what you described, Steph. In elementary school you have that one teacher and you had your subjects in that one classroom. It was the same kind of setting. But, you were sat individually in a row. You can't talk to people next to you. You have to stand up and bow to the teacher and then sit down. And then I just remember, like, there's actually quite a few flashback memories of me when I was in elementary school that are quite stark in my mind, because even as young as kindergarten, like I remember it builds some sort of like resilience in you, I swear. Or I mean, it could traumatize you as well, or it could just basically like be either or, like traumatize you or like... you just gotta suck it up, I remember there was one point where I was obviously upset and I was crying for some reason. And the teacher, who was, my teacher for the whole class, she was just like, oh, just whatever. She can cry in the corner. That's fine. Just 由佢喊啦, basically. Just let her cry. She didn't give a shit about me. It was just like, yeah,
she said that in front of the class.
Yes. And she was like, she'll get, like, she didn't say she'll get over it. She'll be like, when she's done crying, she'll just, But it was like, you've always been made aware. You're all, like, in local school, it's like, you have to be smart. You can't be the rut. You can't be the bottom of the pile. Like, you have to, like, and it was subconsciously, like, always there, And it was hard to have fun. I mean, sure, we did fun things. Like, there was after school activities, there was sports, there was blah, blah. But it was, there's always like, oh, what'd you get this score in this test? Blah, blah, blah. And that was very much like what was focused. But then when you went to international school, I feel like because I was so pressured before in elementary school, that's all I knew. So then, like, when I went to international school, where you had that ounce, a little bit more freedom, where you're like, go play. I'm like, what? What do you mean? Like, do I not need to, like, get, like, 100% on my next, test like the next day, and I was like, what do you mean I don't have homework tonight? I literally was like, I didn't even really know. Okay, might be like a little bit over dramatically a way of saying it, but like I didn't really know how to conduct myself like as a kid.
Yeah.
I mean,
fair enough.
But then international school, it was cool to still be academically driven, but you were cooler if you were also kind of sporty as well. It was like
exactly.
And then I think the pinnacle of being the ultimate popular person is like people aim to be like head boy, head girl. This is maybe back into more like secondary school kind of realm of things, but there was a very, very big contrast from when I transferred from local elementary school to then international elementary school. I was only there for a year before I then went to secondary school, international school. But anyway.
What is a head boy or a head girl? Is it just like whoever has the top grades?
So head boy and head girl, this is actually not concern for elementary school. This is more high school and middle school. It's like year 13, like I guess your senior year, I guess that would translate to, like, you basically have a head boy and a head girl. It's like one girl and one boy out of the whole year, and they essentially like represent the student committee. Like they like basically give speeches and things. Did you have head boy, head girl, Lois?
Yeah, of course.
Oh yeah.
We had head boy, head girl, but not in my international school, but in the boarding school that I later went to.
Right.
Which we will be talking about in another episode. But the thing that I'm more confused about is the system, because can someone tell me this American schooling system, because I'm confused now about elementary school and middle school and high school. I don't know what that equates to for a British school system.
So middle school is basically for us. Oh, I mean, it's not for us, as in for if it's, I don't know the system that you did in your
secondary school.
Singaporean, but what exams did you take?
I took IGCSE.
Oh, so GCSE, right. So middle school, I think, is year 10 and 11. So it's GCSE, I think, is middle school for us.
Is that right? How old are you when you're in middle school, Steph?
Are you 13 and 14?
Okay.
15?
Senior year, I was 17, 18. So that's like -4. So 14, 13 is like the end of middle school.
So I think it's year 7, 8, 9. How many years do you have in middle school? Sorry.
So elementary school is 1st grade to 5th grade, and then middle school is 6, 7, 8, and then high school is 9 to 12.
I'm so confused.
I'm a bit confused.
It's okay. I get really confused when you guys talk about A levels and stuff, so I also don't really know what's going on.
Because our system is so different. Like, as in, for me, I went through primary school, which is just when you're 6 until you're 12. And then after 12 years old, you're into secondary school all the way up to 18.
So it's
that is
basically
technically like, how you would classify.
Yeah, it's basically like the last year of primary school and then the first 2 of secondary school, I want to say.
That's middle school.
If I'm doing my math correctly, then that's technically what middle school would be.
Oh, so elementary school is preschool.
No. Preschool is different.
No, elementary school is primary 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
No, because we only have 5 years.
Okay, fine, 5.
So technically, I think technically, middle school is your P6 and then your secondary 1 and 2.
So year 7, year 8. Okay.
So like,
and then middle school is year 9, 10.
High school is 9, 10, 11, 12, which would be like your whatever A levels. I don't know.
I don't know.
To be fair, I mean, I feel like if I'm gonna do a rundown of my schooling so it makes more sense in our heads when we talk about this today. So I basically just went to like a kindergarten in Hong Kong, and then I went to 1 year of a local primary school, and then I switched to an international school, also local in Hong Kong, and I was there up until I was 14 or 15. So that's secondary 3. So I actually haven't moved schools that much if you like discount that first year of primary school, because I pretty much just what we call in Hong Kong is 直升, which is like you go straight from a primary school into a secondary school by default. And you don't change schools in between. Even though I moved like 9 times during those 15 years of my life, I still stayed in the same school. So just think about all my bus journeys to school every day. I was definitely not walking to school in primary school.
Absolutely.
I was just winding through the roads of Stanley or Pok Fu Lam or wherever I was living, because my parents just love moving. And yeah, so I spent my life on the school bus trying not to throw up every single day. Because Sylvie, I actually don't feel like I know exactly
what
when you went to an international school, because you said after you're 10 years old.
So the local school and the international school have a little bit of discrepancy in terms of age and like what year you're supposed to be in when you're what age you are. I was in local school until primary 3. And then I did year 5 and year 6 in international elementary school. Did I do year 5 and year 6? No. Or did I just go to year 6? I'm going to my memory. I think it was year 5 and year 6. I think I did 2 years. And then the same thing as you, where you sing, where you just basically go straight to the affiliated international secondary school. I basically did year 5, year 6, year 7, year 8, year 9, year 10,
and
year
you
11.
All the way through?
International school, yeah.
Is there such thing as sixing in the US, Steph? Like when you go by default to the next school?
Not in the same ways, I want to say. Because I don't really understand what that means. Is it just basically if you go to Johnson's primary school or whatever, you end up going to Johnson's secondary school?
Yes.
Do you have to test into that?
No.
Okay, so it's kind of the same, or I don't know how similar this is, because I think it maybe has changed, and also it kind of depends on where you live, but basically because certain schools are very impacted, I want to say, usually you end up going to the same school within the place that you live. So in middle school, because I live in a certain city, you ended up going to the high school that serves that city. So I don't remember if I had to test into it, and I feel like I didn't. It was just that you lived there, so then you automatically got into that high school. And there was some tension with that, because I think some people could test in, but also people would fake their address in order to try and get into certain high schools. And then when they got caught, they got kicked out. I had a friend who lived one city over, and she ended up getting kicked out of high school because someone had found out that she lived one city over. And like the way that they draw the city lines is absolutely insane, because my school was sitting right on the border and she lived maybe 2 blocks away, but because the city line had been drawn the way that it had been, even though it was within walking distance, it was still considered in the next town over. So
way.
It was really sad when she had to leave. It was when she got transferred.
Why is it so like rigid? Like,
it's because a lot of people try and game the system, because depending on the ranking of the school, you end up getting a better education sometimes. And I think for the school that she ended up going to, it was not that big of a deal because they were pretty on par with each other.
Right.
But there are people, I don't know, sometimes in the city, and sometimes when I say the city, I mean San Francisco, who like come in to try and get into these schools, because bigger cities like San Francisco have different school rankings and they have a different way of testing into schools. And I remember my cousins had to test in to get into different high schools, and that was based solely on merit and less on where you lived, because like I'm not super clear on that because I never had to test into a school, so I don't really know. But there is a certain test that you had to take, whereas for me, because the city that I lived in was so small, you just end up going to the high school that is in your city.
Well, guess what? If you are in local school, you have to test every single year to make sure you pass to get to the next.
Is that not what
year.
happens in other schools?
Not in international. Well, not in the international school I went.
Really? Yeah. I had to test every single year.
Yeah, but yours
Twice.
is a Singaporean international school.
It's true. I definitely was not going to be able to fly through school.
Because you did also just mention that it was still like very academically driven.
It
Where
was
from what
really academic.
what I'm aware, like it was stressful at the end of the year. Like when I was in local school, it was like you have to make sure you get good grades so that you can go to the following year. Otherwise, you would lamban, which is basically like you repeat your year again. Wait, they did that in Singapore, in the Singaporean International School?
So basically, I would have to test middle of the year and end of year. So end of year is the test that we had like mid-year exams in December. So our school year would be from August to July, and we had exams in December, and then we had exams in June-ish, May, June-ish. And the May, June-ish one is the one that determines whether or not you'll be able to make it to your following year. And we had people who didn't ascend to the following year and had to repeat a year. That's definitely happened before. And it was just within our own school system, right? Because this isn't like a public examination when you're in primary school. So, well, totally, that made me the type of student that would study my butt off in fear.
Yeah. Well, that's why that I was very confused, like when I went to international. So you said it was like it was within your own school system, right? That you had to do this, right? So that's why I was like, why am I working my ass off so hard? Where like people are just like, hey, let's just go out and play in the playground and let's, I don't know, ride our bikes and stuff. I was like, what? Like, you know, you have to study so that you make sure you don't repeat your year. But then, the international school I went to, that was not a thing. Everybody just goes up.
It's very sports focused, right? Your school as well?
I don't know, really. I wasn't really paying that much attention, but...
Fair. I mean, what were the two of you like as students? Because I'm curious, because now you're both students, but as adults in your Cantonese class. But what were you like as a child?
I was a really good student.
Define what
good.
That means?
I was a really scholarly kid. Like, I really liked to read. School was kind of an escape.
Steph.
Yeah, I was really into the things that I was learning, and I really liked learning. And I'm talking about elementary school. I'm not talking about middle school or high school. Because middle school came around, and then I was like, I don't know. And then high school came around, and I was like, what is happening? So when I was younger, though, I was really good at school. But I think part of the reason why I ended up being like a better student, quote unquote, a better student, is because when I transferred schools in second grade, because I went from a school in San Francisco to like a school in the suburbs, their curriculum was really different. And so I remember like testing into second grade already knowing a lot of the stuff that they had taught. And so I think that sort of like pushed me into being a better student, because the way that I tested, the school was like, oh my gosh, like we have all this data on how this kid already knows all this stuff. So then I was presented to the school as a good student. And like there's of course a lot of biases on when you tell teachers that this student is a good student, they tend to treat you in a different way. And I think that actually was really advantageous for me. Like there's a lot of studies on it. I don't know any of them, but I know that they are out there and that they exist. And so all throughout elementary school up until 5th grade, I was one of the top students, I would say. Which, like, for elementary school is, like, not a lot. But, you know, it was, like, I wasn't the top student because there was somebody who was better than me. And I remember one time crying because she had gotten an award. But, like...
That's definitely happened to me before. But wow.
Yeah. And I think part of that had to do with parental pressure. I think my parents, starting out, because I was the first kid or whatever, so they were really into academics. And at the time, they were like, this is really, really important. And then as I got older, they sort of eased off a little bit and was like, yeah, academics are important, but you got to do other stuff like be social and all of this. But starting out, I was a very, very good student. I mean, I think all throughout my childhood and up until high school, I was a very good student, like good as an obedient student. And my teachers liked me, you know. I was never like rowdy or anything. I wanted to learn the material and I wanted to get into like a good college. Did it happen? That's debatable. But yeah, but starting out, I was a very studious child.
All that effort. What about you, Lois? What were you like?
I was a teacher's pet. I mean, like, I was the front of the class type of student, like would sit at the front as much as possible. If it was like a free seating environment, because same as Sylvie, or maybe even Steph for you at some point, my earlier years were like fixed classroom, teachers moved around. And then towards like secondary school, you would start moving around classrooms where teachers stayed put. Because, for example, like a science lab or whatever, you would just be able to move around and like kind of have free seating, right? And whenever we had free seating, I would be smack bang in the middle at the front, even though I was like the tallest female kid in class. I like did not care. I wanted to rub the whiteboard. I just was full on teacher's pet mode. And I can admit it with a bit of pride. Like, I wasn't the best student by far in terms of grades, but I was so keen. That's what I was. I was a keen bean. I always tried. I was always there. I wanted to do all the extra stuff.
What made you have this sort of eagerness? Or is it just
I think it's
who you
innate.
are? It's innate?
I think it's a personality. I have a personality trait of wanting to not disappoint someone, or like wanting to please someone. I think that translated in school a lot, and I was really competitive. I wanted to be high achieving, but I was not cool in the high achieving process, because the real cool is when you pretend you're not studying, or you actually don't have to study, but then you get the good grades. So I was like the second tier cool, because I studied my ass off. Everyone knew I was studying, and I did like all right. I did above average. I mean, wasn't it? Cool. Like, I mean, that's how I see it in my head, because the real cool people like didn't have to study, and they would make it known that they didn't have to study. You know, they didn't really prepare for it. Maybe they're at home grinding and I don't know about it, but everyone's impression is that they never had to study. Did you have to study, Sylvie?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I had to study.
Were you grilled at home to study as well?
You know what? It wasn't so much pressure like given by my parents, but I feel like it was more peer pressure than anything else. Like, I think if I'm drawing from my experience from like local school and international school, like I think I touched upon it before, but like in local school, it was like I was already trying, you know, I was trying a lot. Yeah. And like, you know, I'm still, you know, I did okay, you know, maybe I'm just maybe not that academically like gifted in certain subjects, but it was a constant like uphill climb to just like stay to, you know, around being like average or okay-ish, you know. Like I remember like I have really vivid memories of when I was in like when I was in elementary school, you know, even in certain things that was like more artistic, like things I liked a little bit more, like I really liked art back then. I was making like, you know, like arts and crafts and stuff. And like there was this sort of, but again, it was like, it's very competitive. It's this competitive state, which I feel like is very innate in like the local academic school system.
It is.
That, you know, like it was, I don't know, it was some sort of like design competition. Like you just had to like design a poster or whatever. And like, I went all out. I was like, I love it. It was amazing. And then, you know, I thought I did a great job. And then in the end, it was like, oh, you didn't get it. Or you didn't win like first prize. You didn't come number one. And I was just like, oh, fucking hell. Like all this effort, you know. And you're always reminded that you're like, yeah, you know, this, however much effort you put in, you're just like, yeah, whatever. You're never going to be like the best. But then there was still like this, I guess it kind of build on your persistence or on my persistence. Like, you know, I'm going to try. Yes. I'm going to try. Yeah, I'm going to try. But it just, I would say the education that I had in local school definitely instilled fear in me. I feel like, like really, like, you know, I don't know if it was the environment. It was like, I was scared to get like a question wrong. Like I didn't want to look stupid in front of all my other, you know, peers and the other students. Like, you know, I wouldn't put my hand up and answer a question, I should say, if I didn't know the answer. But then the teacher would just single you out and be like, Sylvie, you tell me now. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to stand here and like fiddle my thumbs and just crumble in anxiety, because it was just like, I don't know. It was just like the environment that was fostered, you know?
Yeah.
And then I felt like I felt like that kind of hindered a little bit in the way how I like expressed myself and how I wanted to learn certain things, you know? And like I feel like in the local school environment, it was very much like you had to figure it out by yourself kind of thing. Like I feel like there wasn't, you know, you can ask for help, but it was also like if you didn't maybe understand how exactly they, I don't know, taught it or communicated to it, or, you know, you're just taking a little bit longer or whatever. It's like, you know, you're just there kind of trying to stay afloat. Like mostly at home, my parents, or mainly I think my mum, she wasn't like, you know, you have to be the best, you got to get one more. It was mostly like, just keep up.
I like that. Just keep up. Like, don't fall too far behind.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I think there's an underlying, you know, expectation where it was still like, oh, you know, I would like you to do good, but like, you know, if it's as long as you're not at the bottom, it's fine, you know, as in like it's okay, you know. And then obviously like then you go to international school, and then it's just this whole other thing. It's just this whole refreshing kind of like outlook upon things, and I still had that deeply rooted in me, you know, the trying. Yes, I feel like that is, anyway, that's has affected me since I was a child. So I still try and I still want to do good. But then there was this other whole thing where like, oh, you know, just be a kid, you know, just go and run around and like whatever. And I feel like it was only until then that like I kind of felt like I became a little bit more outspoken, or a little bit more like coming out of my shell a little bit. Still wasn't like the most kind of loud, extroverted, whatever, but like I was able to kind of like stand up for myself, like in the playground, you know what I mean? Like whereas before I probably just be like, oh, like, you know, because in local school, not only was I, you know, not freaking top of the class all the time, I was also made aware that I'm very othered because of the way I look, you know? So like there's a lot of these different layers. And then when you go to international school, you're like, oh, there's so many different types of people. There's like, you know, everybody's here. There's like, you know, it's a whole mixing pot of everyone. So it's like, I just kind of felt a little bit more comfortable in a way, maybe, I don't know. And then it was just like, oh, I can just be a kid kind of more. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did I answer anybody's question? I forgot what it was now.
I don't remember the question.
It was what I was, if I was a teacher's pet, or what I was like as a kid.
Right.
Yeah, I guess like the competitiveness is so part and parcel of the Hong Kong education, be it if you're in an international one or in a local one. And my impression of American education is like, express yourself. Am I wrong?
No. I think I think if we're talking about
depends, like what kind of like community you're in.
Yeah, definitely. Like I think that especially elementary school, like when you guys talk about taking tests every year, we took tests, but they were not for if you were gonna flunk and repeat a grade. Yeah.
What? You weren't assessed on a yearly basis.
I mean, we were, but it was mostly on grades and the things that you did throughout the year, and less with testing. Like, we had this thing called STAR testing, which is like standardized testing, but it didn't affect your grade in any way, and people would just fill out the entire Scantron with just C's and then like take a nap and stuff.
What?
Wait.
You're
supposed to be a kid. Like, you're supposed to be like bouncing around, running around, like climbing on stuff. You know what I mean? Anyway.
Yeah. It's definitely very different. Especially the younger years, I think it's definitely much more carefree and much more like whatever. Once you get into middle school and high school, especially because of the high school that I went to, it was like very academically challenging, then it starts to mimic a little bit more of what you guys experienced. But I still think less so. I mean, we'll get into it in the next episode because we're talking about high school and secondary school, but you could choose what kind of track you wanted to be on, if you wanted to be super academic or if you wanted to do something else. So, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and standardized testing still had nothing to do with your grades. It was, weirdly enough, they told us that it had more to do with the housing market, and if you did well on standardized testing, like it made your school higher up in
The
the
ranking,
ranks, and
yes.
then that way the houses in the area would cost more, which, like, as a high schooler, who cares?
Right.
Or like as a middle schooler or as like an elementary school kid, sure, it would be nice if my parents' house was more expensive, but like in your
I don't think you
conceptually, like, you don't understand that as a child. Like,
that's a very interesting thing to share, as in, like, it's so practical that it's so irrelevant to your life at that age.
Full disclosure, I'm sure the standardized test did other things. But the only thing that I remember is them telling me that it will affect your parents' houses. And I was like, all right, I guess I'll try.
Is this their way of guilt tripping people into trying? I don't think it's very effective.
Well, okay, the other thing is that these standardized tests were so easy. I don't know. It wasn't like they were challenging. It was, I mean, and of course, because it was measuring the things that you learned throughout the year, if you paid enough attention, it was not hard to do well on these tests. Mm-hmm. But literally, I don't know what they were for. Like, I feel like they were probably also for, like, your school to get more funding, which is why they need you to do well. But I really remember a lot of people just not trying, and I was like, oh, okay, like, I will try.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, technically, it's a evaluation that you can do quite passively for a school, right? In terms of academic level within your students, because based out of a standardized testing, you can rank the schools across the US or across different states more fairly, as in it's like a system that you would do to rank academic level for different schools. So I guess it's part of it, and that's why it's standardized.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but then if most of it's just like half-assed and they don't even give a damn, and like they just do it like whatever.
So it's not accurate.
How is it?
Yeah,
how
I guess
is it
it might not be accurate. But it's probably one section of a roster of evaluation they would do, like people coming to visit and stuff. That definitely would have happened in any school for like quality control purposes, right?
Yeah, they have to figure out how to measure somehow, right? Like, even if it's not completely accurate, it's the best that they can do, I guess. So
wild that your exams didn't really mean that much. We cannot imagine tests. A life like that.
What? No, I want what? As a child, we used to be playing all the time. That's why when I went to international school, I was like, what have I missed out on? Why was I crying in the middle of the night? Like, when my mom was helping me with my Chinese dictation, and I was just crying because I couldn't remember anything. Like, because why does it matter? Because
Did you cry a lot?
I'm just copying, like, I don't know, things over and over again, and guess what? I still can't write properly.
I mean, I agree. No, like, in hindsight now, I completely agree with you. But the truth is, I was in an environment where that was made out to be a big deal. And like, when I listen to the two of you talk, like, it totally makes sense now as an adult, because if you think about it, the way your school perceives education and how they present it to you, like the way they structure your days and the importance they put in different things, then becomes a direct translation of what you will end up feeling and doing within the school setting.
Yes, and that's why I feel like I was not very, like, even when I went to international school, like when we were like discussing in groups and things, and like, that, like, that typical, like, Lois, like when we go and watch shows and people like ask questions afterwards, like if there's a moderator, they ask questions, nobody says anything, nobody puts their hands up, because everybody just has to sit there and be quiet, because that is like what is instilled into like us in the local education. It's like, just, you can't, or it's not necessarily bad, but it's just not, I don't know, to be outspoken or to voice out is like, you just have to listen. You just have to listen and like listen to what I say, do as I say, like, you know what I mean? It's
a way more one-dimensional type of education. Like, to be fair to my school, I did think that we had a relatively 2D education. It probably isn't 3D, like it's more 2D, and I would say like local schools sometimes in the very extreme cases is very 1D, but like for my school there was still encouragement of like finding your avenue, your strengths, your weaknesses. Actually, one of the memories I had at school was when they brought someone in externally to do like a test on what type of learner you were, and that was so helpful. I think I was in like P4, which means I was probably about 10, Steph, and they brought someone in and we had to do these series of tests that were really different from how we would be used to testing, because it's not like, all just pen and paper, and the questions were not academic. They were more like kind of like, psychology tests that you would sometimes do these days online, like for fun or whatnot. But it's supposed to tell you what type of learner you are. And I remember that test actually quite changing my perception of my learning patterns or education, because I found out I was a visual learner. And so then it made sense, because I would, like look at a textbook and I would learn because I remember something from like a graphic and visual point of view. And then my sister realized that she was a tactile learner, and it also made sense because I think she's less of a textbook, listen, sit down type of learner. She needs to be involved, she needs to interact. But like these things are really helpful, because then even though your system didn't give you all these ways of learning, you could extend past school and figure out how to become better. I mean, ultimately they wanted you to have better grades, like that also was the point of it. But I wonder, I don't know, have you lot ever taken any of these tests, like whilst you were in school?
I don't think so. Like tests that show you what kind of learner you are, I don't
Yeah.
think so.
Wouldn't it be interesting to know, like at this age, because even if you're not really
but
like
also,
actively learning?
how accurate is it as well? Like, what if you're like not strictly just like a visual learner? What if you're like, I don't know, cross?
You usually get 2. I think I was something else too, but it was like a percentile.
Okay.
It's kind of like
I don't know. I might have come across it, but I'm not so sure. But I'm just curious. Like, obviously, my experience in the local school was like, a long time ago. I mean, I don't know what it's like nowadays. I don't know if it's still the same, if the system's still the same, or if they've implemented different ways of learning and educating other people. I feel like a lot of local school now have kind of like an international school branch, or it's kind of like a mix kind of thing. But yeah.
I mean, it looks like it's improved. I mean, I can't speak for the academic aspects of it, but like, for example, when I go in to teach at secondary or primary schools, I teach dance occasionally, and then I know, okay, like they have extracurricular stuff and there's enough emphasis and focus on it. And I do think it's changing. Like it has to change, because I think the world is very different as well. Like these days, how we want to employ, the way in which we see education at large is a lot more diverse than even in our generation, which is, a good hot minute when we first went to school.
All right, so everyone, we have discussed a lot, and it is about time to just finish up. So if you enjoyed this episode, please go ahead and follow us on Spotify and give us a like and subscribe, and we'll see you for the next one. Goodbye.
Bye.